The taste of betrayal is bitter and metallic, like copper pennies dissolving on your tongue. I discovered this as I sat in the mahogany-paneled conference room at Sterling and Associates, watching my boss Marcus Whitfield bask in applause that should have been mine. His voice carried across the room with practiced confidence as he gestured toward the projected revenue charts, each number representing months of my sleepless nights, countless client calls, and a deal that had consumed my life for the better part of a year. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Meridian Technologies account, Marcus announced to the board, his chest puffed with undeserved pride, represents the largest single contract in our firm's history. $2.3 million in annual recurring revenue with a 5-year commitment that secures our expansion into the West Coast market. He paused for effect, letting the magnitude sink in. I'm pleased to report that through my direct relationship with their CEO, Chen, we've not only secured this partnership, but positioned ourselves as their exclusive consulting partner for all future technological implementations. My hands clenched beneath the table as I watched him accept congratulations that belonged to me. Every handshake, every pat on the back, every promise of a promotion and bonus was built on a foundation of lies. The other department heads nodded approvingly, scribbling notes about Marcus's supposed brilliance, while I sat invisible in my chair, relegated to the role of silent observer in my own success story. My name is Celeste Morrison, and at 29, I had already established myself as one of the most promising business development managers at Sterling and Associates. What I hadn't anticipated was how quickly 6 years of dedicated service could be erased by a man who viewed my achievements as his personal stepping stones to the executive suite. This is the story of how a single moment of corporate theft ignited a chain of events that would reshape not just my career, but the entire power structure of our company. The morning had started like any other Wednesday in September. I arrived at the office 40 minutes early, a habit I'd developed to stay ahead of the constant demands of client management and proposal development. The 20th floor of the Hudson Tower buzzed with the quiet energy of early arrivals, administrative assistants preparing for the day ahead, and the distant hum of the coffee machines working overtime. My corner cubicle, earned through years of exceeding targets and building client relationships, offered a partial view of the city skyline and served as my command center for managing the most complex accounts in our portfolio. Marcus had called the emergency board meeting the previous afternoon, claiming he had significant news regarding our Q4 projections that would require immediate strategic discussion. I assumed he would be announcing the Meridian deal, but I expected to be presenting alongside him, sharing the spotlight for what was undeniably the most significant achievement of my career. Instead, I received a brief email instructing me to attend as support staff and bring all relevant documentation for potential reference. The warning signs had been accumulating for weeks, but I had attributed them to Marcus's tendency toward micromanagement rather than outright deception. He had begun inserting himself into my client communications, scheduling meetings with Chen without my presence, and requesting detailed briefings on every aspect of the negotiation process. When I questioned the necessity of his involvement, he dismissed my concerns with explanations about senior-level relationship management and ensuring proper oversight of high-value accounts. I should have recognized the pattern. Marcus Whitfield had built his career on the accomplishments of others, a reality that became clear only through retrospective analysis of his rapid ascension through the corporate hierarchy. His previous role at Henderson Financial had ended abruptly after allegations of inappropriate conduct and credit misappropriation, though the details had been carefully buried beneath non-disclosure agreements and carefully crafted resignation letters. Sterling and Associates had hired him based on his impressive resume and polished interview performance, never bothering to investigate the circumstances surrounding his departure from his previous position. The Meridian Technologies account had landed on my desk 11 months earlier, a referral from an existing client who knew Victoria Chen personally and believed our consulting services could help modernize their aging infrastructure systems. At the time, Meridian was a mid-sized technology company struggling to scale their operations while maintaining the innovative culture that had driven their initial success. They needed strategic guidance on everything from organizational restructuring to technology implementation, exactly the type of comprehensive consulting that Sterling and Associates specialized in providing. My first meeting with Victoria Chen took place on a rainy Thursday morning in her San Francisco office, a converted warehouse space that perfectly captured the intersection of innovation and practicality that defined her company's approach to business. Victoria was unlike any executive I had previously encountered. She possessed the technical expertise of an engineer, the strategic vision of a seasoned business leader, and the communication skills necessary to bridge the gap between complex technological concepts and practical business applications. Our initial conversation lasted 3 hours, during which we discussed not just Meridian's immediate consulting needs, but their long-term vision for growth and expansion. Victoria was particularly interested in our methodology for managing organizational change during periods of rapid scaling, a challenge that had become increasingly relevant as Meridian's client base expanded beyond their original market segment. I found myself genuinely excited about the potential partnership, not just because of the financial implications, but because of the opportunity to work with a leader who valued innovation and strategic thinking above corporate politics and traditional hierarchies. The proposal development process consumed the next 3 months of my life. I spent countless evenings researching Meridian's industry landscape, analyzing their competitive positioning, and developing customized solutions that would address their specific challenges while leveraging their existing strengths. The comprehensive strategy document I eventually produced included detailed timelines for implementation, projected return on investment calculations, and risk mitigation strategies that would protect their business continuity throughout the transition process. Victoria's response exceeded my most optimistic expectations. She didn't just approve the proposal, she expanded the scope to include additional services that would extend our partnership timeline from 2 years to 5 years and increase the total contract value from an initial estimate of $1.8 million to the final figure of $2.3 million. The expanded agreement included provisions for exclusive consulting rights, performance bonuses tied to specific operational improvements, and a framework for ongoing strategic advisory services that would essentially embed Sterling and Associates into Meridian's decision-making processes. The contract negotiation phase presented its own challenges, requiring careful attention to legal details, payment structures, and performance metrics that would protect both parties while ensuring the partnership could adapt to changing business conditions. I worked closely with our legal team to craft language that would provide flexibility without compromising our service commitments, a process that required multiple revisions and extensive consultation with both Victoria's team and our own internal stakeholders. Throughout this period, Marcus maintained what I considered appropriate supervisory involvement. He attended key meetings, reviewed major proposal drafts, and provided strategic input when requested. His contributions were valuable, but clearly supplementary to the primary relationship I had developed with Victoria and her team. The success of the partnership depended on the trust and communication channels I had established, not on any particular insight or relationship that Marcus brought to the table. The final contract signing took place on a Friday afternoon in August, a ceremonial conclusion to months of intensive collaboration. Victoria flew to Chicago specifically for the event, bringing her chief operating officer and head of strategic development to participate in what she described as the beginning of a transformative partnership for Meridian's future. The signing ceremony was followed by a celebration dinner at one of the city's premier restaurants, during which Victoria repeatedly expressed her appreciation for my dedication to understanding their business and developing solutions that aligned with their values and objectives. Marcus attended both the signing ceremony and the dinner, accepting congratulations and praise, while carefully avoiding any direct claims about his role in securing the partnership. At the time, I interpreted his behavior as appropriate modesty rather than calculated positioning for future credit appropriation.
I assumed that when the success was formally announced to our internal teams and board of directors, the recognition would be shared appropriately based on actual contributions to the project's success. The first indication of Marcus's true intentions came during our weekly department meeting the following Monday morning. Instead of discussing the Meridian success as a team achievement, he framed the presentation around strategic relationship building at the executive level and the importance of senior leadership involvement in high-stakes negotiations. While he didn't explicitly claim sole credit for the success, his language carefully minimized my role while emphasizing his own contributions to the process. When I attempted to clarify my involvement during the meeting, Marcus dismissed my input with a comment about supporting team members who help execute the vision developed at the leadership level. The other team members, who had been following the project's progress and understood my central role in its development, exchanged uncomfortable glances but remained silent in the face of Marcus's implied authority over the narrative. The weeks following the contract signing brought increasingly bold attempts by Marcus to rewrite the history of the Meridian partnership. He began scheduling one-on-one meetings with Victoria without my involvement, describing these conversations as executive-level strategic planning sessions that required his direct participation. When I expressed concern about being excluded from these discussions, he explained that senior client relationships require appropriate level engagement and suggested that my role should transition to implementation support rather than strategic guidance. I discovered the full extent of his deception through a series of emails that Victoria forwarded to me by mistake. She had intended to send them to Marcus, but a confusion over email addresses resulted in my receiving a thread of communications that revealed Marcus's systematic campaign to position himself as the primary architect of our partnership. In these messages, he described the Meridian deal as a strategic initiative I developed based on my assessment of their organizational needs and market positioning. The emails included detailed explanations of negotiation strategies that I had developed, technical solutions that I had researched and proposed, and relationship-building approaches that I had implemented throughout the partnership development process. Marcus had essentially created an alternate version of reality in which my months of work were recontextualized as the execution of his master plan, while his minimal involvement was transformed into visionary leadership that had made the entire success possible. Reading those emails felt like watching someone steal pieces of my identity and reassemble them into their own personal success story. Every strategic insight I had developed, every innovative solution I had proposed, every relationship I had carefully built was being claimed as evidence of Marcus's exceptional leadership and business development expertise. The magnitude of the theft was breathtaking in its audacity and devastating in its implications for my career trajectory. The corporate culture at Sterling & Associates operated on an unspoken but universally understood principle that credit for major successes determined advancement opportunities, salary increases, and recognition within the broader professional community. By claiming ownership of the Meridian partnership, Marcus wasn't just stealing credit for a single project, he was positioning himself for promotions and opportunities that should have been mine, while simultaneously undermining my credibility and future prospects within the company. I spent that evening analyzing every email, every meeting note, and every piece of documentation related to the Meridian project, searching for evidence that would clearly establish my central role in its development and success. The paper trail was extensive and unambiguous. Every initial client contact, every proposal draft, every negotiation milestone bore my signature, my email address, or my direct involvement. Victoria's communications consistently addressed me as the primary point of contact and decision-maker for all project-related matters. The challenge lay not in proving my involvement, but in finding a way to expose Marcus's deception without appearing to undermine company leadership or engage in unprofessional behavior that could damage my own reputation. Corporate whistleblowing, even when justified, often carried significant professional risks that could extend beyond the immediate situation to affect future employment opportunities and industry relationships. I decided to document everything methodically, creating a comprehensive timeline that traced the development of the Meridian partnership from initial client contact through contract signing. This documentation included copies of all relevant emails, meeting notes, proposal drafts, and client communications that demonstrated my central role in every aspect of the project. I also began keeping detailed records of Marcus's continued attempts to claim credit and exclude me from ongoing client relationships. The corporate board meeting that Wednesday morning represented the culmination of Marcus's campaign to rewrite history. As I sat in that conference room listening to him present my work as his achievement, I realized that passive documentation would not be sufficient to address the scale of his deception. The situation required a more strategic response, one that would expose the truth while protecting my own professional interests and future career prospects. The applause that followed Marcus's presentation seemed to echo endlessly in the mahogany-paneled room. Board members nodded approvingly as he fielded questions about his strategic approach to client development and the methodologies he had employed to secure such a significant partnership. Each answer demonstrated his superficial understanding of the project's complexities while revealing his ability to repurpose my detailed explanations into convincing presentations of his own expertise.
Victoria Chen sat at the far end of the conference table, having flown in specifically for this board meeting at Marcus's invitation. Her presence was intended to validate his claims of executive-level relationship building and provide testimonial evidence of his strategic leadership capabilities. What Marcus hadn't anticipated was Victoria's integrity and her commitment to accurate representation of professional relationships and contributions. As the meeting progressed, I noticed Victoria's increasingly puzzled expression as Marcus continued his presentation. She had worked closely with me for almost a year, participating in countless meetings and conversations that had shaped the partnership development process. The discrepancy between Marcus's claims and her actual experience was becoming impossible to ignore, though corporate etiquette prevented her from immediately addressing the misrepresentation in such a formal setting. The board's questions grew more detailed as members sought to understand the specifics of client acquisition strategies and relationship management techniques that had made the partnership possible. Marcus's answers became increasingly vague and theoretical, lacking the detailed knowledge that would have been necessary to actually develop and execute the strategies he was claiming as his own. Several board members exchanged glances that suggested they were beginning to notice the superficial nature of his responses. When board member Catherine Phillips asked about specific challenges encountered during the negotiation process and how they had been resolved, Marcus's answer revealed his fundamental lack of understanding about the project's complexities. He described generic problem-solving approaches that bore no resemblance to the actual issues we had faced or the innovative solutions that had ultimately secured Victoria's commitment to the partnership. I watched Victoria's reaction to Marcus's response, noting the slight frown that crossed her face as she realized the extent of the misrepresentation taking place. Her eyes met mine across the conference table, and I saw recognition of the truth alongside what appeared to be disappointment in the dishonesty she was witnessing. The moment felt suspended in time, pregnant with the potential for truth to emerge and restore appropriate credit where it belonged. The meeting continued for another 20 minutes, during which Marcus fielded additional questions about implementation timelines, success metrics, and future expansion opportunities. His answers continued to demonstrate surface-level knowledge while lacking the depth of understanding that actual project leadership would have provided. The board members' enthusiasm gradually diminished as the limitations of his knowledge became more apparent, though none directly challenged his claims during the formal presentation. As the meeting concluded, Board Chairman Robert Sterling thanked Marcus for his exceptional work in securing this partnership and announced that the Executive Committee would be meeting the following week to discuss appropriate recognition and advancement opportunities for leadership that delivers such outstanding results. The implication was clear. Marcus's fabricated success story was positioning him for significant career advancement based entirely on achievements that belonged to me. The conference room began to empty as board members gathered their materials and engaged in small conversations about quarterly projections and strategic planning initiatives. I remained seated, struggling to process the magnitude of what had just occurred and the implications for my professional future. The careful documentation I had assembled seemed inadequate against the momentum of Marcus's deception and the board's apparent acceptance of his narrative. Victoria approached my chair as the room cleared, her expression serious and concerned. "Celeste," she said quietly, "I think we need to have a conversation about what just happened in there. Would you be available for coffee this afternoon? There are some things I need to understand about the representation of our partnership development process." I nodded, recognizing both the opportunity and the risk inherent in Victoria's invitation. Her willingness to discuss the situation privately suggested that she had recognized the inaccuracies in Marcus's presentation and was prepared to address them. However, any conversation that challenged the official narrative presented to the board would need to be handled with extreme care to avoid professional complications for both of us. Marcus remained in the conference room after the other board members departed, organizing his presentation materials with the satisfied demeanor of someone who had successfully accomplished a significant objective. He noticed Victoria's conversation with me, but seemed unconcerned about the potential implications, apparently confident that his narrative had been sufficiently established to withstand any challenges that might emerge. "Victoria," he called across the room, "I hope you found the presentation helpful in understanding our strategic approach to partnership development. I think the board has a clear appreciation now for the executive-level relationship building that made this success possible." Victoria's response was diplomatic but notably restrained. "It was certainly enlightening to see how the partnership development process was characterized for your board. I look forward to continuing our collaboration as we move into the implementation phase." Her words were carefully chosen to avoid direct contradiction while maintaining professional courtesy, but the underlying tension was unmistakable to anyone familiar with her typically enthusiastic communication style. The afternoon coffee meeting took place at a quiet cafe several blocks from the Sterling & Associates office, a neutral location that would allow for frank discussion without the risk of being overheard by colleagues or clients. Victoria arrived precisely on time, carrying a leather portfolio that suggested she had prepared thoroughly for our conversation. "I need to understand what happened in that board meeting," she began without preamble once we were seated with our coffee. "The presentation I heard today bore virtually no resemblance to my actual experience of developing this partnership. Marcus described strategies and approaches that I've never discussed with him, while completely omitting the extensive work and innovative solutions that you developed throughout our collaboration." I chose my words carefully, recognizing the delicate nature of the situation and the potential consequences of appearing to disparage company leadership. "I think there may have been some confusion about roles and contributions during the partnership development process." The board presentation emphasized certain aspects of the relationship while de-emphasizing others. Victoria's expression indicated that she understood the constraints I was operating under while appreciating the diplomatic nature of my response. "Celeste, I've been working in technology partnerships for 15 years, and I've never encountered a situation where the actual project lead was so thoroughly written out of the success story. Every substantive conversation we had, every strategic decision we made, every innovative solution we developed involved your direct leadership and expertise." She opened her portfolio and extracted a folder containing printed copies of email communications spanning the entire partnership development timeline. "I brought these because I thought it might be helpful to review the actual record of our collaboration. These emails clearly demonstrate who was driving the strategic development process and who was providing the innovative solutions that ultimately secured our commitment to this partnership." The emails Victoria had printed told a story that completely contradicted Marcus's claims in the board presentation. Every significant communication was addressed to me, every strategic question was directed to my expertise, and every expression of appreciation for innovative problem-solving acknowledged my contributions specifically. Marcus appeared in the communications primarily as a copied recipient who occasionally added brief comments that demonstrated his supervisory awareness without indicating substantive involvement in the development process. "I want you to know," Victoria continued, "that Meridian Technologies values accuracy and integrity in all our business relationships. The misrepresentation I witnessed today creates serious concerns about Sterling & Associates' commitment to honest communication and appropriate recognition of professional contributions. I cannot allow this situation to continue without addressing it directly." I felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as Victoria articulated her commitment to setting the record straight. While her support was invaluable in establishing the truth about my role in the partnership development, I was also aware that challenging Marcus's narrative could create significant professional complications that might extend beyond the immediate situation. "What do you think would be the most appropriate way to address this?" I asked, seeking her guidance on how to proceed while protecting both of our professional interests. Victoria's response demonstrated the strategic thinking that had made her such an effective CEO. "I think the most professional approach would be to request a follow-up meeting with the board to provide additional context about the partnership development process. I can frame this as wanting to ensure that Sterling and Associates has complete information about successful strategies that might be applicable to future client relationships." The genius of her approach lay in its focus on providing value to the company rather than directly challenging Marcus's claims. By offering to share insights about effective partnership development strategies, she could naturally reveal the actual sequence of events and contributions without appearing to attack anyone's credibility or professional reputation. We spent the next hour developing a strategy that would expose the truth while maintaining professional decorum and protecting both of our interests. Victoria would request the follow-up meeting through official channels, citing her desire to provide additional insights that might benefit Sterling and Associates' future client development efforts. I would prepare comprehensive documentation that supported the accurate narrative while avoiding any language that could be interpreted as personal attacks or unprofessional criticism. The plan required careful timing and meticulous preparation, but it offered the best opportunity to restore appropriate credit while maintaining the professional relationships necessary for continued success in the consulting industry. Victoria's willingness to risk potential complications in order to ensure accurate representation of professional contributions demonstrated the integrity that had made our partnership so successful from the beginning. As we prepared to leave the cafe, Victoria made one final observation that captured the essence of what had occurred and what needed to happen next. Professional success should be based on actual contributions and demonstrated expertise, not on the ability to claim credit for other people's work. If we don't address this situation appropriately, we're essentially endorsing a system that rewards deception while penalizing the people who actually create value. Her words crystallized my understanding of what was at stake beyond my individual career prospects. The situation represented a broader question about corporate accountability and the importance of maintaining professional integrity in an environment where advancement opportunities were limited and competition for recognition was intense. The following morning brought an email from Victoria to Robert Sterling requesting a follow-up meeting to discuss additional insights about partnership development strategies that emerged from yesterday's board presentation. Her message was professionally worded and emphasized her commitment to providing value to Sterling and Associates while subtly indicating that there were important aspects of the partnership development process that had not been fully explored during the initial presentation. Marcus's reaction to Victoria's meeting request was immediate and revealing. He appeared at my cubicle within an hour of the email being sent, his usual confident demeanor replaced by obvious anxiety about the potential implications of additional scrutiny into the partnership development process. "Did Victoria mention anything to you about concerns regarding yesterday's presentation?" he asked, attempting to maintain casual tone while clearly fishing for information about potential threats to his narrative. I responded with carefully neutral language that avoided providing either reassurance or confirmation of his concerns. "She mentioned wanting to share some additional insights about successful partnership strategies. I think she was impressed by the board's interest in understanding effective client development approaches." Marcus's follow-up questions revealed the extent of his anxiety about Victoria's motivations and the potential content of any additional presentation she might make. His lack of detailed knowledge about the partnership development process meant that he had no way of predicting what specific information Victoria might share or how it might contrast with the narrative he had established during the board meeting. The next 3 days passed slowly as we waited for the board to schedule Victoria's follow-up presentation.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
During this period, I used every available moment to organize and refine the documentation that would support the accurate narrative about partnership development, contributions, and strategies. The evidence was overwhelming and unambiguous, but presenting it effectively would require careful attention to tone and context to avoid appearing vindictive or unprofessional. Victoria called me each evening to coordinate our preparation and discuss potential questions or challenges that might arise during her presentation. These conversations revealed her commitment to accuracy and fairness, while also demonstrating her understanding of the political complexities in challenging established narratives within corporate environments. The goal, she reminded me during one of these conversations, is to establish accurate understanding of successful strategies, not to create conflict or embarrass anyone. If the truth emerges naturally through factual presentation, that's the most professional and effective approach for everyone involved. Her strategic wisdom proved invaluable as we refined our approach and anticipated potential complications. The presentation would focus on successful partnership development methodologies, supported by specific examples and documented communications that would naturally reveal the actual sequence of events and contributions without requiring direct challenges to Marcus's claims. The weekend before Victoria's scheduled presentation, I spent hours reviewing every aspect of our strategy and ensuring that all supporting documentation was organized, accurate, and professionally presented. The magnitude of what we were attempting felt overwhelming at times, but the importance of maintaining professional integrity and ensuring accurate recognition of contributions provided the motivation necessary to persevere through the challenges. Sunday evening brought a final preparation call with Victoria, during which we reviewed the key points of her presentation and confirmed our mutual commitment to professional behavior regardless of the outcomes. Her confidence and integrity had been instrumental throughout the partnership development process, and her willingness to risk potential complications in order to ensure accuracy and fairness demonstrated the leadership qualities that had made Meridian Technologies so successful. "Tomorrow we set the record straight," she said as we concluded our conversation, "not through attacks or accusations, but through facts and documentation that speak for themselves. Truth has a way of emerging when it's supported by evidence and presented with integrity." As I prepared for bed that night, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment and the potential consequences of the following day's events. Regardless of the immediate outcomes, I knew that we had chosen the path of integrity and professional courage over passive acceptance of injustice and deception. Sometimes, the most important victories are not measured in immediate rewards, but in the maintenance of principles and values that define who we are as professionals and human beings. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually energized me for challenging days ahead. Instead, I found myself moving through my routine with mechanical precision, every action weighted by the knowledge of what lay ahead. The presentation that would either restore truth to the narrative or potentially destroy my career was scheduled for 10 o'clock, giving me enough time to arrive early and make final preparations for what Victoria had diplomatically termed a strategic partnership review session. The 20th floor of Hudson Tower felt different that morning, charged with an undercurrent of anticipation that seemed to emanate from the conference room where board members were already gathering for what they believed would be an informational session about client relationship best practices. Robert Sterling had accepted Victoria's meeting request with enthusiasm, viewing it as an opportunity to gain insights that could be applied to future business development initiatives across all departments. Marcus had arrived even earlier than usual, his normally impeccable appearance showing subtle signs of stress that only someone familiar with his habits would notice. The slight tremor in his hands as he organized documents, the way he kept adjusting his tie, and the forced nature of his interactions with colleagues all suggested that he understood the potential risks inherent in Victoria's unexpected desire to provide additional context about our partnership development process. I settled into my cubicle and opened the secure folder containing the comprehensive documentation Victoria and I had prepared over the weekend. Every email thread, every proposal draft, every meeting summary was organized chronologically to tell the complete story of how the Meridian partnership had actually developed. The evidence was so overwhelming and detailed that any objective observer would immediately understand the reality of contributions and leadership throughout the process. At 9:45, Victoria arrived at the reception desk wearing the same composed confidence that had characterized every important meeting throughout our collaboration. She carried a sleek presentation case and wore the kind of professional attire that conveyed authority without ostentation. David at reception greeted her warmly, clearly remembering her from previous visits and unaware of the significance this particular meeting would hold for everyone involved. Miss Chen is here for the board presentation, David announced through the intercom system that connected to the executive conference room. Within moments, Robert Sterling himself appeared to escort Victoria to the meeting, a gesture of respect that reflected both her importance as a major client and the board's genuine interest in learning from her with Sterling and Associates. I watched through the glass walls as Victoria entered the conference room, where 8 board members had assembled for what they anticipated would be an enlightening discussion about successful client relationship strategies. Marcus was already seated at the table, his position strategically chosen to maintain visibility and reinforce his claimed role as the primary architect of the partnership's success. The meeting began with Robert Sterling's introduction of Victoria and his expression of appreciation for her willingness to share insights that could benefit the company's future client development efforts. Victoria responded with gracious acknowledgement of the opportunity while carefully avoiding any language that might reveal the true purpose of her presentation before she had established the appropriate context. "I want to begin," Victoria said as she connected her laptop to the conference room's projection system, "by emphasizing how impressed Meridian Technologies has been with the professionalism and expertise demonstrated throughout our partnership development process. The success of our collaboration has exceeded our initial expectations and has established a foundation for the kind of long-term strategic relationship that creates value for both organizations." Her opening comments were diplomatically positive while remaining completely accurate, a careful balance that would make any subsequent revelations more impactful by contrast. The board members nodded approvingly, clearly pleased to hear such enthusiastic endorsement of their company's capabilities from a satisfied client. "What I'd like to share with you today," Victoria continued, "is a detailed analysis of the specific strategies and approaches that made our partnership development so successful. I believe these insights could be valuable templates for future client relationships, particularly those involving complex technical implementations and extended negotiation timelines." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair as Victoria's presentation began to focus on specific methodologies and detailed examples rather than the general relationship-building concepts he had emphasized during his presentation. His superficial knowledge of the actual partnership development process meant he had no way of predicting where Victoria's analysis might lead or what specific evidence she might present to support her observations. Victoria's first slide displayed a timeline of the partnership development process, beginning with the initial referral contact and extending through the final contract signing ceremony. Each major milestone was clearly labeled with dates, participants, and outcomes, creating a factual framework that would provide context for the more detailed analysis that followed. The initial contact phase, Victoria explained, was particularly noteworthy because of the immediate alignment we discovered between Meridian's strategic objectives and Sterling and Associates' demonstrated expertise in organizational transformation consulting. This alignment emerged through a series of in-depth technical discussions that established the foundation for everything that followed. The second slide contained excerpts from the early email communications between Victoria and me, clearly showing the detailed technical conversations and strategic planning that had characterized our initial relationship building. Marcus's name appeared only as a copied recipient on these emails, with no substantive contributions or responses visible in the communication thread. Board member Catherine Phillips leaned forward with obvious interest as she reviewed the projected email excerpts. These communications show remarkable depth of technical understanding from the Sterling and Associates team. The level of detailed analysis and customized solutions is exactly what we hope to achieve in all our client relationships. Victoria nodded enthusiastically. That's precisely what impressed us most about this partnership development approach. Rather than generic consulting proposals, we received thoroughly researched recommendations that demonstrated genuine understanding of our industry challenges and business objectives. The technical expertise required to develop these solutions was quite sophisticated. Marcus's face had begun to take on a pale quality as Victoria's presentation continued to focus on specific technical details and strategic innovations that he had never fully understood, much less developed himself. The email excerpts being displayed made it increasingly clear that the substantive work had been conducted through direct communication channels that had not included his participation. I'd like to show you some examples, Victoria said as she advanced to the next slide, of the innovative problem-solving approaches that ultimately secured our commitment to this partnership. These solutions required not just general consulting expertise, but specialized knowledge of our industry regulations and technical infrastructure requirements. The slide displayed excerpts from the comprehensive proposal document I had developed, highlighting specific sections that addressed Meridian's unique challenges with customized solutions that demonstrated deep understanding of their business environment. The technical complexity and industry-specific knowledge required to develop these recommendations was clearly beyond the scope of generic consulting approaches. Robert Sterling studied the projected content with obvious appreciation. This level of customization and technical depth represents exactly the kind of value-added consulting that differentiates our services from generic business development firms. Who on our team was responsible for developing these specialized solutions? Victoria's response was delivered with calm precision that made the revelation all the more impactful. These solutions were developed entirely by Celeste Morrison, who demonstrated exceptional expertise throughout every phase of our partnership development process. Her technical knowledge, strategic insight, and innovative problem-solving capabilities were the primary factors in our decision to commit to this partnership. The conference room fell silent as the implications of Victoria's statement became clear to everyone present. The detailed technical solutions, innovative strategies, and relationship-building expertise that had secured the most significant contract in company history had been developed not by the senior executive who had claimed credit, but by the business development manager who had been relegated to a supporting role in the official narrative. Marcus attempted to interject with a comment about team collaboration and senior oversight, but Victoria continued her presentation without acknowledging his interruption. Her next slide displayed a comprehensive analysis of communication patterns throughout the partnership development timeline. The data was devastating in its clarity. My email address appeared as the sender or primary recipient on 87% of all substantive communications with Meridian Technologies. Marcus's participation was limited to occasional copied messages and brief supervisory comments that demonstrated awareness without indicating meaningful contribution to the strategic development process. Effective partnership development, Victoria explained, requires consistent communication, reliable follow-through, and the ability to address complex challenges with innovative solutions. Throughout our 11-month collaboration, Celeste Morrison provided exceptional leadership in all these areas while maintaining the kind of professional relationship that made even difficult negotiations feel collaborative rather than adversarial. Board member James Henderson raised his hand to ask a question that would prove pivotal to the entire presentation. Ms. Chen, when you refer to Celeste Morrison's leadership throughout this process, are you indicating that she served as the primary point of contact and strategic decision-maker for Sterling and Associates throughout the partnership development? Victoria's affirmative response was accompanied by documentation that removed any possibility of misinterpretation. Celeste was unquestionably the lead consultant, strategic architect, and relationship manager for our entire partnership development process. Every major decision, every innovative solution, and every successful negotiation milestone was achieved through her direct leadership and expertise. The slide that accompanied her response displayed a side-by-side comparison of communication volumes, showing the dramatic difference between my extensive correspondence with Victoria and Marcus's minimal involvement in substantive discussions. The visual representation made it impossible to ignore the reality of who had actually driven the partnership development process. Effective partnership development, Victoria explained, requires consistent communication, reliable follow-through, and the ability to address complex challenges with innovative solutions. Throughout our 11-month collaboration, Celeste Morrison provided exceptional leadership in all these areas while maintaining the kind of professional relationship that made even difficult negotiations feel collaborative rather than adversarial. Board member James Henderson raised his hand to ask a question that would prove pivotal to the entire presentation. Ms. Chen, when you refer to Celeste Morrison's leadership throughout this process, are you indicating that she served as the primary point of contact and strategic decision-maker for Sterling and Associates throughout the partnership development? Victoria's affirmative response was accompanied by documentation that removed any possibility of misinterpretation. Celeste was unquestionably the lead consultant, strategic architect, and relationship manager for our entire partnership development process.
Every major decision, every innovative solution, and every successful negotiation milestone was achieved through her direct leadership and expertise. The slide that accompanied her response displayed a side-by-side comparison of communication volumes, showing the dramatic difference between my extensive correspondence with Victoria and Marcus's minimal involvement in substantive discussions. The visual representation made it impossible to ignore the reality of who had actually driven the partnership development process.
Marcus made another attempt to redirect the conversation toward collaborative team approaches and senior-level strategic oversight, but his comments sounded increasingly hollow against the weight of documented evidence that Victoria was presenting. Several board members had begun taking notes, while others exchanged glances that suggested they were beginning to understand the discrepancy between Marcus's previous presentation and the actual facts of the partnership development. I want to be completely transparent, Victoria continued, about why I requested this follow-up meeting. The presentation I heard last week did not accurately represent my experience of this partnership development process. While collaboration and team support were certainly valuable, the success of this partnership was achieved through the exceptional individual contributions of one team member, whose role was significantly understated in the previous board presentation. The room's atmosphere shifted perceptibly as Victoria's diplomatic language gave way to more direct statements about the misrepresentation that had occurred. Robert Sterling's expression had become serious and focused as he began to grasp the implications of what was being revealed about the accuracy of information previously presented to the board. Victoria's next slide displayed excerpts from the proposal document that had ultimately secured Meridian's commitment, highlighting specific innovations and strategic recommendations that had differentiated Sterling and Associates from competing consulting firms. The technical sophistication and industry expertise required to develop these solutions was clearly documented, along with the email communications that showed how each element had been researched, developed, and refined through my direct effort. These innovative approaches, Victoria explained, were not the result of generic consulting methodologies or standard relationship-building techniques. They required specialized research, creative problem-solving, and the kind of technical expertise that can only be developed through years of focused experience in organizational transformation consulting. Catherine Phillips asked the question that everyone in the room was beginning to consider. Ms. Chen, based on your experience throughout this partnership development process, who would you identify as the primary architect of the successful strategies that secured Meridian's commitment to this relationship? Victoria's response was unequivocal and supported by comprehensive documentation. Without question, Celeste Morrison was the strategic architect, technical expert, and relationship builder who made this partnership possible. Her contributions were not just significant, they were essentially the entire foundation upon which our collaboration was built. The final component of Victoria's presentation focused on the ongoing implementation phase and Meridian's expectations for continued collaboration with Sterling and Associates. Her comments made it clear that their satisfaction with the partnership was directly tied to their relationship with me and their confidence in my ability to provide continued strategic guidance throughout the implementation process. As we move forward with this partnership, Victoria concluded, Meridian Technologies expects to continue working primarily with Celeste Morrison, whose expertise and leadership have been instrumental in every aspect of our successful collaboration. We view her as an invaluable strategic partner whose continued involvement is essential to achieving the operational improvements and organizational transformations that this partnership is designed to deliver. The presentation ended with a comprehensive summary slide that displayed key metrics about the partnership's development timeline, communication patterns, technical innovations, and strategic outcomes. Every data point reinforced the same conclusion. The success that Marcus had claimed as his own achievement was actually the result of my sustained effort, expertise, and leadership throughout an 11-month process that had required exceptional professional capabilities. Robert Sterling was the first to speak after Victoria concluded her presentation. Ms. Chen,
Thank you for providing this detailed analysis of the partnership development process. The level of documentation and specific examples you've shared has given us valuable insights into the methodologies that created such outstanding results. His tone was carefully measured, but the implications of his words were clear to everyone in the room. The board had been presented with irrefutable evidence that the previous narrative about the Meridian partnership was fundamentally inaccurate, and they would need to address the discrepancies between Marcus's claims and the documented reality of the partnership development process. Marcus made one final attempt to maintain his narrative by suggesting that senior oversight and strategic guidance had been essential components of the partnership's success, even if they weren't reflected in the detailed communication records. His explanation sounded desperate and unconvincing against the weight of evidence that Victoria had presented, particularly since he could provide no specific examples of strategic contributions that weren't directly contradicted by the documented timeline. Victoria's response to Marcus's comments was diplomatically devastating. I certainly appreciate the value of appropriate oversight and support, but I want to be clear that the strategic innovations, technical solutions, and relationship-building expertise that secured this partnership were developed through Celeste Morrison's individual contributions rather than through collaborative processes or senior-level guidance. The meeting concluded with Robert Sterling's announcement that the board would need time to review the information presented and would be scheduling individual meetings with relevant team members to ensure complete understanding of the partnership development process. His language was professionally neutral, but the implications were clear. Marcus's claims were under serious scrutiny, and the truth about contributions and achievements was being formally investigated. As board members filed out of the conference room, several stopped to thank Victoria for her detailed presentation and her commitment to providing accurate information about successful consulting methodologies. Their comments suggested genuine appreciation for her transparency, while also indicating that significant questions had been raised about the accuracy of previous representations. Marcus lingered in the conference room after the other board members departed, his earlier confidence completely replaced by obvious anxiety about the implications of Victoria's presentation. He attempted to engage her in conversation about clarifying any misunderstandings, but Victoria politely declined to discuss the matter further, indicating that she had presented the information she felt was relevant and would leave any follow-up discussions to Sterling & Associates' internal processes. Victoria found me at my cubicle shortly after the meeting concluded, her expression reflecting both satisfaction with the presentation's effectiveness and concern about the potential consequences for my professional situation. "I think the board understands the reality of the partnership development now," she said quietly. "The documentation spoke for itself, and the questions they asked suggested they recognized the discrepancies between previous claims and actual contributions." I felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as I processed what had occurred during the presentation. While Victoria's evidence had clearly established the truth about my role in the partnership development, I was also aware that challenging Marcus's narrative could create professional complications that might extend beyond the immediate situation. "I think the board understands the reality of the partnership development now," she said quietly. "The documentation spoke for itself, and the questions they asked suggested they recognized the discrepancies between previous claims and actual contributions." I felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as I processed what had occurred during the presentation. While Victoria's evidence had clearly established the truth about my role in the partnership development, I was also aware that challenging Marcus's narrative could create professional complications that might extend beyond the immediate situation.
What happens next depends largely on how the board chooses to address the situation, Victoria continued. From Meridian's perspective, we've provided accurate information about our partnership experience and our expectations for continued collaboration. The decisions about personnel and internal recognition are obviously Sterling & Associates' responsibility to make. Her words were carefully chosen to avoid appearing to dictate internal company decisions while making it clear that Meridian's satisfaction with the partnership was directly tied to their relationship with me rather than with Marcus. The implication was that any changes to my role or involvement could potentially affect the client's commitment to the ongoing partnership. The afternoon brought a series of individual meetings as board members began their investigation into the discrepancies between Marcus's presentation and Victoria's documentation. Catherine Phillips was the first to request a private conversation, asking me to join her in the small conference room adjacent to the main boardroom for what she described as a clarifying discussion about partnership development processes. Celeste, she began, I want you to feel comfortable speaking openly about your experience throughout the Meridian partnership development process. The board needs to understand the actual sequence of events and contributions in order to make appropriate decisions about recognition and future responsibilities. I provided a detailed chronological account of the partnership development, supported by documentation that corroborated every aspect of Victoria's presentation. The evidence was so comprehensive and consistent that there was no possibility of misinterpretation about who had actually driven the process and delivered the results that had secured Meridian's commitment. Catherine's questions focused on specific technical innovations and strategic approaches that had been highlighted in Victoria's presentation, seeking to understand the expertise and effort required to develop such sophisticated solutions. My responses demonstrated not just familiarity with the content, but the deep understanding that could only come from having actually researched, developed, and implemented each element personally. Based on this conversation and the documentation you've provided, Catherine concluded, it's clear that your contributions to this partnership development were not just significant, but were essentially the foundation of the entire success. The board will need to address the misrepresentation that occurred in last week's presentation and ensure that recognition and advancement opportunities are aligned with actual achievements. Similar conversations with other board members throughout the afternoon reinforced the same conclusion. The evidence was overwhelming, the documentation was comprehensive, and the discrepancies between Marcus's claims and reality were impossible to ignore. Each board member expressed appreciation for my professionalism in handling a difficult situation and indicated that appropriate corrective actions would be taken. Robert Sterling requested the final meeting of the day, a private conversation in his executive office that would prove to be the most significant discussion of my career at Sterling & Associates. His demeanor was serious but supportive as he reviewed the comprehensive file of documentation that had emerged from Victoria's presentation and the subsequent board member interviews. Celeste, he began, I want to start by apologizing on behalf of the company for the misrepresentation that occurred regarding your contributions to the Meridian partnership. The evidence presented today makes it clear that credit and recognition were inappropriately assigned, and we need to take immediate steps to address the situation. His acknowledgement of the injustice was both validating and concerning, confirming that my fears about Marcus's deception had been justified, while also highlighting the serious professional violations that had occurred. The company's response to the situation would determine not just my immediate future, but the precedent for how similar issues might be handled in the future. The board has decided, Robert continued, that Marcus Whitfield's employment with Sterling & Associates will be terminated immediately. The misrepresentation of professional contributions, along with the attempt to claim credit for achievements that belong to another team member, constitutes a serious violation of our professional standards and ethical guidelines. The news of Marcus's termination was both satisfying and sobering, representing justice for the deception while also highlighting the serious consequences that could result from professional misconduct. His rapid downfall from respected executive to terminated employee demonstrated how quickly corporate fortunes could change when truth finally emerged. Additionally, Robert said, the board would like to offer you Marcus's position as Senior Vice President of Business Development, along with the recognition and compensation that should have accompanied your exceptional achievement in securing the Meridian partnership. Your demonstrated expertise and professional integrity make you the obvious choice to lead our business development efforts going forward. The promotion offer was both thrilling and overwhelming, representing not just career advancement but vindication of my professional capabilities and dedication to excellence. The position would provide opportunities to implement innovative approaches to client development while ensuring that future successes were appropriately recognized and rewarded. Victoria's strategic intervention had accomplished more than just exposing the truth about the Meridian partnership. It had catalyzed a complete transformation of my professional trajectory and established a precedent for accountability that would benefit the entire company culture.
The courage she had demonstrated in challenging inaccurate representations had protected professional integrity while ensuring that merit rather than deception determined advancement opportunities. The following morning brought an official announcement to the entire company about leadership changes in the business development department. The carefully worded communication acknowledged my promotion to senior vice president while diplomatically noting that Marcus Whitfield had decided to pursue other opportunities. The announcement also highlighted my role in securing the Meridian partnership and indicated that similar recognition would be provided for all team members whose contributions had been instrumental in major company achievement. My new corner office, previously occupied by Marcus, required minimal changes to reflect my work style and priorities. The awards and recognition displays were replaced with technical certifications and industry acknowledgments that represented genuine expertise rather than political maneuvering. The view of the city skyline provided daily inspiration for the innovative approaches I plan to implement throughout the business development department. Victoria called that afternoon to congratulate me on the promotion and to express her satisfaction with the outcome of her strategic intervention. Justice isn't always swift in corporate environments, she observed, but when it's supported by comprehensive evidence and principled leadership, truth eventually prevails over deception. Her willingness to risk potential complications in order to ensure accurate recognition of professional contributions had been instrumental in transforming a situation that could have permanently damaged my career trajectory. The partnership between our companies had been strengthened by the demonstration that both organizations valued integrity and accuracy over convenient narratives or political expedience. The following morning brought an official announcement to the entire company about leadership changes in the business development department. The carefully worded communication acknowledged my promotion to senior vice president while diplomatically noting that Marcus Whitfield had decided to pursue other opportunities. The announcement also highlighted my role in securing the Meridian partnership and indicated that similar recognition would be provided for all team members whose contributions had been instrumental in major company achievements. My new corner office, previously occupied by Marcus, required minimal changes to reflect my work style and priorities. The awards and recognition displays were replaced with technical certifications and industry acknowledgments that represented genuine expertise rather than political maneuvering. The view of the city skyline provided daily inspiration for the innovative approaches I plan to implement throughout the business development department. Victoria called that afternoon to congratulate me on the promotion and to express her satisfaction with the outcome of her strategic intervention. Justice isn't always swift in corporate environments, she observed, but when it's supported by comprehensive evidence and principled leadership, truth eventually prevails over deception. Her willingness to risk potential complications in order to ensure accurate recognition of professional contributions had been instrumental in transforming a situation that could have permanently damaged my career trajectory. The partnership between our companies had been strengthened by the demonstration that both organizations valued integrity and accuracy over convenient narratives or political expedience.
The weeks that followed brought opportunities to implement new approaches to client development that emphasized genuine expertise and collaborative problem-solving over traditional relationship-building techniques. The success of the Meridian partnership provided a template for future projects, while also serving as evidence that innovative consulting approaches could deliver exceptional results when properly supported and recognized. Marcus's departure created minimal disruption to ongoing projects, largely because his actual contributions had been limited to supervisory oversight rather than substantive client relationship management. The transition of his responsibilities to appropriate team members was accomplished smoothly, with several clients expressing appreciation for increased direct access to the technical experts who had been developing solutions for their challenges. The transformation of the business development department extended beyond personnel changes to include new protocols for documenting contributions, recognizing achievements, and ensuring that advancement opportunities were aligned with actual performance rather than political positioning. These changes created a more transparent and equitable environment that encouraged innovation while protecting individual contributions from misappropriation. Victoria and I continued to collaborate closely on the Meridian implementation phase, which proceeded ahead of schedule and exceeded projected performance improvements. The success of the partnership attracted attention from other potential clients who had observed the innovative approaches and exceptional results that characterized our collaboration. The recognition I received for the Meridian partnership success opened doors to speaking opportunities at industry conferences and professional associations, providing platforms to share insights about effective consulting methodologies and client relationship strategies. These presentations further established my reputation as a thought leader in organizational transformation consulting while also promoting Sterling & Associates' capabilities to broader professional audiences. Looking back on the events that had transformed my career trajectory, I realized that Victoria's strategic intervention had accomplished more than just exposing Marcus's deception and securing appropriate recognition for my contributions. Her commitment to professional integrity had catalyzed systemic changes that would benefit future team members while establishing Sterling & Associates as a company that valued accuracy and merit over convenient narratives or political expedience. The lesson extended beyond individual career advancement to encompass broader questions about corporate accountability and the importance of maintaining professional standards in competitive business environments. When leaders are willing to challenge inaccurate representations and demand evidence-based recognition of contributions, they create cultures that encourage innovation while protecting the interests of dedicated professionals who create genuine value for their organizations. My experience had demonstrated that truth, when supported by comprehensive documentation and principled advocacy, could prevail over deception and misrepresentation. The courage required to challenge established narratives was significant, but the consequences of allowing professional misconduct to continue unchallenged were far more damaging to both individual careers and organizational integrity. Victoria's strategic wisdom in presenting facts rather than accusations had been instrumental in achieving a successful outcome while maintaining professional relationships and avoiding unnecessary conflict. Her approach provided a template for addressing similar situations in ways that prioritized accuracy and justice while protecting the interests of all stakeholders involved in complex professional relationships. 6 months after the board meeting that changed everything, I stood in the newly renovated business development floor of Sterling & Associates, watching my team of 12 consultants collaborate on proposals that would reshape how we approached client partnerships. The transformation had been remarkable, not just in terms of physical space and organizational structure, but in the fundamental culture that now governed how we recognized achievements and fostered professional growth. The corner office that had once symbolized Marcus's stolen authority now served as a collaborative workspace where innovative ideas were developed and refined through genuine teamwork rather than individual credit grabbing. The walls displayed certificates of achievement that belonged to the people who had actually earned them, alongside client testimonials that specifically mentioned the team members whose expertise had created exceptional value. Sarah Chen, my newest hire and Victoria's recommended candidate from Meridian's former consulting team, knocked on my doorframe with the enthusiasm that had become characteristic of our department's new energy. Celeste, the Morrison Industries presentation is ready for your review. The entire team contributed sections based on their specialized expertise, and I think we've created something that showcases our collaborative approach while highlighting individual strengths. The proposal she handed me represented everything we had worked to achieve in rebuilding the department's reputation and methodology. Each section clearly identified the contributing consultant while demonstrating how their specialized knowledge integrated with broader strategic objectives. The transparency and accountability built into our new processes ensured that recognition would always align with actual contributions. Victoria had become more than just a satisfied client. She had evolved into a strategic advisor whose insights helped shape our approach to professional development and client relationship management. Her monthly visits to review the Meridian implementation progress also included informal mentoring sessions, where she shared perspectives on leadership challenges and organizational transformation strategies. The ripple effects of what happened 6 months ago continue to surprise me, Victoria observed during our most recent consultation. Word has spread throughout the industry about Sterling & Associates' commitment to professional integrity and merit-based advancement. We're receiving inquiries from consulting firms that want to understand how to implement similar accountability measures in their own organizations. The industry recognition had indeed been substantial and unexpected. 3 major business publications had featured articles about innovative approaches to client relationship management and professional development, with Sterling & Associates cited as an example of how transparency and evidence-based recognition could drive both employee satisfaction and client success rates.
My speaking engagements at professional conferences had evolved from sharing technical consulting methodologies to addressing broader questions about corporate culture and leadership accountability. The story of how documented evidence and principled advocacy had transformed a potentially career-ending situation into an opportunity for systematic improvement resonated with audiences across multiple industries. James Morrison, no relation despite the shared surname, had joined our team from a competitor firm specifically because of our reputation for recognizing and rewarding genuine expertise. His background in international business development complemented our existing capabilities while bringing fresh perspectives on global client relationship strategies. I left my previous firm, James explained during his first team meeting, because I watched too many colleagues have their achievements minimized or claimed by others. The culture here represents what professional consulting should be: collaborative, transparent, and focused on delivering exceptional value to clients while ensuring that credit goes where it belongs. The financial results had validated our approach as definitively as betrayal transformation. The department's revenue had increased by 68% over the 6-month period, driven by both the expansion of existing client relationships and the acquisition of new partnerships that were attracted by our reputation for innovative problem-solving and professional integrity. Marcus's departure had created an interesting case study in the consequences of professional misconduct that extended beyond immediate termination.
His attempts to secure positions at competing firms had been complicated by industry awareness of the circumstances surrounding his departure from Sterling and Associates. The consulting community, while often competitive, maintained informal networks that shared information about professional behavior and reliability. I heard through industry contacts, Victoria mentioned during one of our conversations, that Marcus has been struggling to find executive-level positions because potential employers have questions about his track record and the accuracy of his claimed achievements. The professional world is smaller than people realize, and reputation matters more than many executives understand. The lesson had not been lost on other senior managers throughout Sterling and Associates who had observed the swift consequences of misrepresenting contributions and claiming unearned credit. The company had implemented new protocols for documenting project leadership and client relationship development that created transparency while protecting individual achievements from misappropriation. Robert Sterling had become one of the strongest advocates for the cultural changes that had emerged from the situation, frequently citing the business benefits of accurate recognition and merit-based advancement. When people know their contributions will be acknowledged appropriately, he observed during a company-wide meeting, they invest more energy and creativity in their work because they understand that excellence will be rewarded rather than exploited. The Meridian partnership had expanded beyond our original projections, with Victoria's company requesting additional consulting services that leveraged our demonstrated expertise in organizational transformation and technology implementation. The success had attracted attention from other technology firms who were seeking similar strategic guidance for their own growth challenges. My promotion to Senior Vice President had opened opportunities to influence company-wide policies and procedures that ensured professional integrity remained a central value rather than a convenient talking point. The changes we implemented became templates for other departments that wanted to create more transparent and accountable approaches to performance evaluation and recognition. Catherine Phillips, who had been instrumental in the board's investigation and response to Marcus's deception, had been promoted to Chief Operating Officer and frequently collaborated with me on initiatives that strengthened the company's reputation for ethical leadership and professional excellence. Her support had been crucial in implementing systematic changes that protected individual contributions while fostering collaborative innovation. The situation with Marcus could have been devastating for company morale and client relationships, Catherine reflected during one of our planning sessions. Instead, it became a catalyst for positive changes that have strengthened every aspect of our operations. Sometimes crises create opportunities for improvement that wouldn't have emerged under normal circumstances. The documentation protocols we had developed became industry best practices that other consulting firms began adopting to protect both their employees and their reputations. The systematic approach to tracking contributions and maintaining transparent records of project leadership had proven valuable not just for preventing credit misappropriation, but for accurately assessing performance and identifying advancement candidates. Victoria's decision to risk potential complications in order to ensure accurate representation of professional contributions had created a precedent that influenced how client relationships were managed throughout our industry. Her example demonstrated that successful business partnerships required not just technical expertise and strategic capability, but also the integrity to ensure that recognition aligned with reality. The personal satisfaction of having my achievements properly recognized was significant, but the broader impact on professional culture and industry standards provided deeper fulfillment. The changes we had implemented would benefit future consultants who might otherwise have faced similar challenges with credit misappropriation and professional misconduct. My team had become a destination for talented professionals who wanted to work in an environment where expertise was valued, contributions were documented, and advancement opportunities were based on demonstrated capabilities rather than political maneuvering. The recruitment advantages had been substantial, allowing us to attract candidates who might otherwise have chosen competing firms. The quarterly reviews that had once been sources of anxiety and uncertainty had transformed into collaborative planning sessions where individual achievements were celebrated and future development opportunities were discussed openly. The transparency and accountability that now characterized our performance evaluation process had eliminated the political gamesmanship that had previously influenced advancement decisions. Victoria continued to serve as an external advisor whose perspectives on leadership and professional development helped shape our approaches to client relationship management and team building. Her willingness to maintain involvement beyond the immediate business partnership reflected her commitment to supporting organizational cultures that prioritized integrity and excellence. Looking ahead, the foundation we had built through principled response to professional misconduct would continue generating benefits for both current team members and future employees who would inherit a culture of transparency and merit-based recognition. The systematic changes implemented in response to one individual's deception had created protections and opportunities that would influence company operations for years to come. The industry recognition and business success that had resulted from our commitment to professional integrity demonstrated that ethical leadership was not just morally appropriate, but also strategically advantageous. Companies that maintained high standards for accuracy and accountability attracted both talented employees and discerning clients who valued transparency and reliability. The story had become more than a personal vindication. It had evolved into a template for addressing professional misconduct in ways that strengthened organizational culture while delivering justice for affected individuals. The courage required to challenge inaccurate narratives and demand evidence-based recognition had created positive changes that extended far beyond the immediate situation. As I prepared for the afternoon client presentation that would potentially secure another major partnership, I reflected on how different my professional trajectory had become since Victoria's strategic intervention had restored truth to the narrative about my contributions and capabilities. The transformation served as a powerful reminder that integrity, when supported by evidence and principled advocacy, could triumph over deception and create lasting positive change. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.